There's a lot of chatter, a lot of momentum around outcome measurement, but not a lot of talk about what it actually means and how you actually do it. So that's something that we're, of course, very focused on, having done outcome measurement for the last 10 years. Foundationally, it starts with accurate audience measurement across all channels, so linear, streaming,
Right.
and digital. If you don't have accurate audience measurement, tying it to outcomes is sort of dead on arrival.
Welcome back to Big Data Brains. I'm Evan Shapiro, your media cartographer. This is Sean Muller, founder of iSpot. Looking very slick.
You too?
Welcome to Cannes. First of all, the heat.
Yeah.
Hot enough for you?
Yeah, it's too hot. If we can turn the temperature down like by 5 to 10 degrees, that'll be okay.
Yeah, we've been all sweating our asses off here. That's why we're looking so cool here in air conditioning. This is a tradition for us. We don't get to talk every year here. Outcomes were something we talked about last year. It felt like it was going to be a movement towards that more and more throughout the year. That's what happened.
Yep.
Now every deal seems to be outcome driven.
Yeah.
How are you now measuring outcomes? How are you building towards an outcome at the start of a campaign through your cross-screen measurement? And how do you correctly give attribution at the end of the day? That seems to be the holy grail of the outcome-based buying cycle.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of momentum around outcome measurement, but not a lot of talk about what it actually means and how you actually do it. So that's something that we're, of course, very focused on, having done outcome measurement for the last 10 years. Foundationally, it starts with accurate audience measurement across all channels, so linear, streaming, and digital. If you don't have accurate audience measurement, tying it to outcomes is sort of dead on arrival. So that's very, very foundational. Then in terms of measuring outcomes, first you got to define what the outcome is, and it's going to be different for different industries, right? You can have an outcome by having somebody come visit a website or make a purchase online, somebody go into a store and make a purchase, somebody go to the grocery store and make a purchase, somebody go buying a car or visiting a dealership. So you got to get grounded by what the outcome that you're measuring actually is. And then you got to consider short-term and long-term outcomes. Short-term is what we all know as traditional attribution, where you're giving credit to the touch points before the outcome. But long-term outcomes are just as important. Long-term outcomes is sort of what is traditionally known as brand impact, right? So what is the longer-term purchase intent, the likability, the recall for a particular brand, because that's what drives long-term impact. So outcomes measurement is not easy. You gotta consider the short-term and the long-term impact. And then the other thing that's really fundamentally different about outcome, when we talk about audience measurement, the creative really has nothing to do with anything. You just measure audience, right? But when we're talking about outcome, the creative has a big, big impact. So you need to isolate those things. You need to understand the creative impact and the media impact.
Yeah, I think that's, I was talking to someone just as recently as this week about how as much as half of outcomes is driven by creative. Is that your finding as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, we like to think about it as an equation, like creative plus audience equals outcome.
But you're measuring the creative effect, the effect of creative on outcomes.
Correct.
You're measuring that as well, not just the targeting as well. You put them alongside.
Correct, and that's really the key for both short-term and long-term outcomes.
Right, especially if you're thinking about the life cycle of buying a television set or a car.
Yeah.
The arc of brand awareness is really, it takes years in some cycles.
Yeah, and I would say for short-term outcomes, they're generally about equal in weight, but for longer-term outcomes and brand impact, I would say the creative is almost even slightly more important.
That's fascinating. I think, we talk a lot about measuring audience reach and frequency and outcomes, but the impact of different creatives, and now especially with the use of AI. I was talking to somebody yesterday about, they scoffed at, oh, well, you buy connected television and you have one creative.
Right.
That was the reaction.
Yeah.
But you talked to somebody 25 years ago, and one creative was all you had. Now
Right.
you have to have multiple iterations of multiple lengths, and then you're measuring, A/B testing, all of this stuff. That's what your stack does, I think, incredibly well.
100%. Yeah, you gotta rotate the creatives. You also need to fundamentally understand how each creative resonates with your target audience. You kind of have to match the audience you're targeting with your media to how well the creative is resonating with that audience segment in particular. And that's something that a lot of advertisers don't do today. They simply don't even know how to do it.
Right.
And so you got the team over here that's siloed, that's making the creative, and somebody blessed it, and then you got the media team that's saying, oh, we target adults 25 to 49, so we're going to go buy those.
Right, and that whole school of thought of we're going to buy against the demographic, not a geo-psychographic slice, because that's what connected television data allows you to do, is buy down to not just the head end, but also a psychographic profile at that level too.
Yeah.
You're building audiences on the front end with a lot of the partners that you're working with.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, so we measure both traditional audiences, which is just your age and gender,
right,
and then advanced audiences, which is more specific interest profile of a prospect or a client.
And then we talked about measuring outcomes, but also measuring impact of creative against all this stuff. The impact of AI on measuring all of this seems to be, to me, everyone talks about the AI writing scripts or acting in television shows. And I've actually talked as recently as last week of AI animating TV shows. But I have always thought the largest impact would be the kind of behind the scenes, less sexy stuff of matching audiences and creative, matching audiences and products. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, first, you got to have a foundational and trusted measurement. Because again, if you don't have that, any AI you do is also dead on arrival.
Right, whatever, if you put garbage into AI, you get really bad garbage out.
Right, in fact, you might be making things even worse, right? So you need the AI models trained specifically on trusted data. But what I would tell you is AI is definitely making our measurement data even much more valuable. It's unlocking so much value. Like, I'll give you an example. So we've, on the creative side, since we've been talking about that, we've been measuring creative effectiveness for over 12 years now via our acquisition of Ace Metrics. And we've been really good at understanding the things like purchase intent and likability and recall and information and emotion and all these kind of qualitative metrics. But what AI has allowed us to do is to understand this to a much, much different level. So really to get to the why. Why does this ad have high purchase intent with women 35 through 44? So what we've been able to do using our own AI infrastructure, our own NVIDIA infrastructure, is actually take all this data and compile it into vectors and create themes around every moment in the ad and understand every moment in the ad. And so now with our AI, not only can we report on these scores that are trusted by so many brands, but we can explain the why behind it, and we can help them create the next great ad that's going to resonate with their target audience.
So much to unpack there. First of all, you've built your own infrastructure.
Yeah.
Is that what I heard you say? So you bought your own chips and you built your own large language model internally there.
Yeah.
So that's really fascinating. But secondarily, I think the larger point here that gets lost in all this conversation around AI and marketing is it doesn't matter how good your model is. If you're feeding it bullshit, that's what's going to come out the other side.
100%. 100%. In fact, you're going to get even more bullshit.
And worse.
It's going to amplify the bullshit.
But in this case, you're talking about a decade's worth of data that you're using to train the model.
Correct. Yeah.
That's why. That's the correct use of AI. Now it amplifies or it accelerates your ability to manipulate the data you've already had to a multi-human level, which is something you could never have done yourself. But the data itself is so sound, it gets down to that granular level.
I mean, it's 15 years of creative audience and outcome data that's adopted and accepted in the marketplace, and now these AI models are trained on it. And a lot of the talk in the industry is about workflows, AI workflows, and that's great. We need the workflows, but workflows are going to exist in a lot of different places. All these workflows need data that they can rely on so they can make sound decisions. And that's where we see our place in the ecosystem is providing the connectivity, our agents via an MCP connection to all of these workflow. We have MCP connection available today to Claude and OpenAI and Gemini, but also to all of these custom workflows that are being created out there.
That's a smart way to do it. We talked about outcomes last year. We're talking about outcomes this year. That trend's not going to reverse itself, right?
Yeah.
But where do you see the progress being made? I've heard this great phrase this week: "Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress."
Yeah.
And so outcomes-based buying is not necessarily still as universal. And frankly, the connected television does not make it as easy as it could potentially be.
Yeah.
Certainly as on some other platforms, so to speak. So where do you see the progress being made in outcomes-based measurement and advertising in the year ahead?
Yeah, so first of all, brands have been doing outcome measurement for a long time. So it's not like this brand new thing. I think it's just bubbled up sort of in attention, but the advertisers themselves have had outcome models. What you really want these outcome models to do is you want them to do an apples to apples comparison in all the channels that you're buying, whether it's linear, streaming, YouTube, digital, TikTok, whatever it may be. So, and when we talk about outcomes, again, short-term outcomes, the metrics that we talk about is a conversion rate and lift, right? You want to know both of those things. The lift, we like to think of the lift as sort of the quality of the conversions, right? The conversion rate is how many people saw the ad, and then how many people bought or took action. But that doesn't tell you if they wouldn't have done that anyway. The lift metric gives you the quality of that conversion. So now imagine having a conversion and lift number for every linear TV network that you're buying, for every streaming platform that you're buying, for YouTube, for TikTok, all done in the exact same way. So that's what is super, super powerful for brands, for advertisers, because then they can make smart allocation decisions. Now, I'll tell you where outcome is going more. It's really the publishers that are paying a lot more attention to outcomes, and hence
that's where the new attentions come from.
Correct, and that's and of
rightfully
course,
so.
And
it's going to be a competitive advantage or disadvantage to be able to put that in your sales package. We can measure outcomes based on attention on our platform.
100%. So all the smart publishers are very, very leaned into this. They're offering the outcome measurement first and foremost. But where this is really moving to very quickly is using outcomes for optimizations, where the networks use this outcome signal to optimize the placement of the ads so they can deliver a better result. And of course, there's also some experimentation, and we're involved in it with outcome-based buying. And there's sort of a particular way you got to do that, but that's a little more complicated. It's a little more complicated just because the outcomes are different for every industry, how you establish the baselines, the impact of creative. It's just there's complications there, but where this is moving full steam is publishers adopting outcome measurement so they can prove the value, and then the ones that are really smart and lean in are moving very quickly to optimizing based on that signal.
Cool. Well, it's always a thrill to nerd out with you around this stuff. It is. I mean, you've been really, to your point, really leading the way on cross-screen measurement, which is something I'm obsessed with. I recently put out data around cross-screen attention, and looking at the whole consumer and understanding the whole customer journey is something the industry doesn't do enough of, and you've been doing it for a long time. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Evan. I appreciate it. Good to see you.
This is Evan Shapiro, Big Data Brains. We'll see you next time.